feel to know everyone was wrong. Give it time, we might see the mysteries of reality are gone. No, I've been meaning to, I was going to call you like 3 times this week, and then I was like, I'll just wait till we podcast and I'll tell him. But since we're talking about simulation hypothesis, this is one of those moments where it's so strange, it's like, it has to be a simulation. Like, there's no way that this could actually be reality, fundamental reality, or some, not fundamental, but some random organic reality. Someone's pushing levers.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, like sometimes I heard it referred to as like basement reality or like benchmark reality.
Yes.
So this is not that.
This is not, well, or it's just moments where you just think, it's pretty strange if it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, we play in a band together. Mm-hmm. We're about to release our first single, The Ballad of Betty and Barney Hill, which we'll do another podcast about that for the listeners. But it is one of the most famous, was the first real like alien abduction. I mean, a quote, whether you believe it or not, it's the first time, I believe in 1961, when a couple from New Hampshire said they were abducted by aliens. They were out driving in the country, and it was Betty and Barney Hill, and it's a very strange story. And I heard about the story years ago and was just fascinated about it because it seems like more common, like you hear like aliens. Like, to me, what was weird is that it was the first time. Mm-hmm. So it's like they were the ones that either made up these stereotypes that became prevalent in UFO lore or folklore, or they actually saw it. You know what I mean? And so I wrote the song about Betty and Barney Hill, which we recorded, and I have to say, I'm trying not to sound arrogant, but I think it's probably the best UFO alien abduction song ever written.
You put some qualifiers in there.
I mean, it could be. I mean, I'll say this. It's definitely the best country alien UFO abduction song ever written. Yeah. But I think it might be just the best UFO abduction song ever written. I don't know what you think, but
I was just waiting for it. It's just the best song ever written.
Ever.
Yeah.
What have you heard a better alien UFO abduction song?
Yeah, when you give it a couple of qualifiers, I can't give you a better like country UFO abduction song.
I think we were just watching you the whole time again. I forgot to hit auto switch. Well, you saw Dave's reaction.
Yeah.
So it's a very...
I'm hard pressed to think of a better one.
Yeah, it's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. I got to tweak something. I'm just making sure this podcast goes live. I'll be so mad if this podcast doesn't go live. So anyway.
I don't think it's arrogant because the tone that I'm getting from you is more like you're pleased with what you put out. Like, I was watching the Great British Baking Show last night, and one of the contestants said, "That's as good as I can do." And they felt good about how they did.
Well, I'll go a step further and say I think it's better than anyone else could do. I mean, until somebody sends me a version of an alien UFO abduction song that's better than the one that I wrote,
you're going to stick the flag in the ground. Yeah.
Who's even close? I mean, you could say same thing about, Vanilla Ice and the Ninja Turtles rap. I mean, no one else has written a better
for a Ninja Turtle
rap song. And if you have, we'd like to hear it. Bring it on. So anyway, I wrote the song.
Yeah.
And somebody sent me an article. It's so weird. I can't even say it.
Top 5 country.
No. It's even stranger than that. So we had this president in this country. His name was Barack Obama. I don't know if you remember this guy.
That, yeah.
When he finished his presidency, he started a media production company called Higher Ground Productions.
I don't think I realized that.
No, yeah, he's partnered with Netflix on a bunch of things. They've done a series of shows, just kind of odd things, podcasts, nothing that great, to be honest. I mean, they gave him an award, but just because, like, oh, he narrated something about the parks, and they're like, it's the best narration we've ever heard, Mr. Anyway, I don't want to say anything too bad about him because I might need him. So
yeah.
The point is, this article somebody sent me was Netflix and Higher Ground have partnered with a new script that's supposed to be coming out as a film, probably starting to work on this year and coming out next year, called White Mountain.
Okay.
And it's about the Betty and Barney Hill abduction story.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at the article, it's like 3 producers to the movie. Mm-hmm. It's Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and a woman named Tanya Davis.
Oh, I'm not familiar with her. Yeah.
When you're on a movie, when you have executive producer, that just means like you're a famous person who's connecting another person.
Yeah.
Like you don't do as much. It's not as hands-on.
I've heard the line of, I'll give you an EP credit. And it doesn't sound like there's a lot of legwork involved in being...
Yeah. You're just like, well, I'm friends with Fred Durst and you want him on your track. Okay, I'll give him a call and you got to give me this shout out in your credits, Didn't do a lot. Producer credit, though, is like, I'm hands-in.
Yeah,
like
you're the CEO of the project.
I'm really interested in making sure this project is a success. And Barack Obama that's what he's... Of all the things that man could be doing with his time right now, what he's doing is making a film about Betty and Barney Hill. And back to my point about great works of art regarding alien abduction stories.
Yeah.
It just struck me as very strange that there are 2 men on this planet who seem to be so obsessed with the Betty and Barney Hill story that they would commit a significant amount of their time and resources to creating art to tell that story. One of those men is me. The other man is our former president, Barack Obama.
Well,
I mean, I'm really glad that he's doing
elite
it.
Company you're in, yeah.
Well, that's back to the simulation hypothesis. Like, is that not a little strange?
It's real strange, yeah.
I mean, of all the films that guy could make, why is he making that film?
Yeah, the Netflix thing I remember seeing him do that came across my feed or whatever was some kind of a documentary about the world and it probably had something to do with conservation, which that makes sense to me, right? If you're like retired Democratic president in 2023.
It's an easy gig and it lines up with your policies and everything that you would stand for.
Something like that is not a big reach, but you're right. I would not have guessed a UFO abduction story.
I'm trying to contact the production company. I'm like, well, they have to use my song in the soundtrack. There's no other Betty and Barney Hill song that's worth using.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that if they hear it, they'll go, oh, wow, that's exactly what our movie's about.
That's the one we want. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Things like that happen and you just think, really? Is that just organic? That just happened? Me and Obama. I mean, I don't like most of his policies. Right, I don't particularly like him as a politician, but by God, if he's going to talk about UFOs and aliens, I'm right there with you, buddy.
Yeah. You don't have to agree on everything.
Yeah.
And I think if Obama were here, he'd say, let's find some common ground.
Are we switching? Is this thing actually working? I don't know if it is. I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's working. Yeah, see there I can't tell if this equipment ever works right. I don't know what I'm doing. I know how to write a song about UFOs, but I don't know much.
Better than pretty much anybody else.
As far as I can tell.
As far as you know.
So that was my news this week. Any news from you this week? Any simulation?
Boy,
because we do this if you don't know this, we do this from time to time. We'll call each other and I'll go like, all right, you won't believe what happened in the simulation today. Kind of joking, kind of not joking. It's just
yeah, that's something that may come up later in this conversation is simulation theory is one of those where it's my kind of my litmus test on what I can bring up around people. Like you said, you start a lot of get to know you conversations with, you ever seen a UFO or a ghost?
Yeah.
At some point I'll kind of broach the subject of the simulation. and oftentimes get like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, that's weird. I'm kind of joking.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
nothing personal. Sorry, I'm just getting over COVID, so if I blow my nose, sorry.
Yep. The
Blame the Chinese. And their bat soup.
the thing.
Those damned wet markets. Shut the whole world down.
Anyway, yeah, I can't think of anything this week that happened, but typically for me, it's like, boy, this simulation does have rules it likes you to play by.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's like, it's hard to get around, because if you start to kind of formulate your worldview that way, it's like I don't know if it's a circular argument or not, but it's kind of hard to, like we've talked about that before, where it's like, the simulation has rules and it likes it when you play by its rules, and it doesn't like it when you don't. But that's also kind of like, well, reality has rules. You know what I mean? And
right.
Gravity has rules, and even morality. And like you lie, cheat, and steal. Some people would call it karma. Some people would call it the vengeance of God. I don't know. But yeah, like it's a weird. It's weird that we've said that. I've said that to you before for years. Is like, whether that's what's going on or not, that does seem like the best way to view reality.
Yeah, it's a good way to operate.
Even if that's like not exactly what's happening. So anyway, that was a good starter. Nothing this week though. No weird. No. What's one that you had? You had one a few months back that you called me about. You're like, oh man, another glitch in the simulation.
Gosh, I don't remember now, but.
I problem every other month I'll have one.
Yeah.
It's like too on the nose.
Mine are more just confirmation that the simulation likes for you to play by its rules more often than not.
Well, we're going to talk about simulation today.
Mm-hmm.
So let's break it down. I made show notes.
Cool.
This time. I don't know if you call it show notes. I made notes so I don't drift into my ADHD. I'll stay somewhat on topic. So when you're talking about simulation hypothesis, before you get into that, you really have to, like, it sounds like, because everybody saw The Matrix when it came out, and we kind of think this is a modern idea, but actually it's not. Like, it's gone way back to like Plato and a lot of philosophers back, looking at reality on a very fundamental level, 1,000 years ago or whenever. I don't even know how long ago that was, but it goes back to the idea of materialism versus idealism. Mm-hmm. So simulation hypothesis is kind of just like a modern take on idealism. And so materialism, and I apologize if we sound like morons describing this. I'm not going to pretend for a second that I'm a scientist or a philosopher. I'm a musician who writes songs about UFOs.
The best songs.
The best UFO songs you've ever heard in your life. And I'm going to just try to explain this the best that I
These
can.
are Cliff Notes.
So the materialism it comes down to, does matter give rise to consciousness, or does consciousness give rise to matter? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right way to say it or not, but mind gives rise to matter, or matter gives rise to mind. And materialism is the idea that it's all just atoms. We're just meat on a rock flying through space, and give it enough time, eventually you're going to write Shakespeare and develop AI programs and everything else. You know what I mean? It's just random. Everything came from nothing spontaneously, and this is it. That's it. There's all there is to it. There's nothing particularly interesting or profound about consciousness or anything, really. I mean, it's really a bleak, kind of terrible way to look at it. I feel like it's back to the idea of like, what's the best way to look at reality? Like, that's a very boring way to look at reality.
Yeah, it is.
Even if that happened to be true.
It's bleak, and it's just making me think of, Crime and Punishment. The idea, like, when we talk about the simulation has rules, like, the main character, I believe he commits a murder just to see if he gets away with it. And it's like, not a fulfilling thing for him to do.
Yeah.
You know,
there's something
the nihilism
deep
of it.
within him that he can't deny.
Yeah.
That just won't let him get away with it.
Yeah. So not to get into crime and punishment, but as you said, well, that's a pretty bleak existence.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you are a materialist, I've never understood, I've heard lots of Sam Harris's and people like that try to explain morality in some way that like is just irrational or something. And it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I think if all it is material, then I don't know why you wouldn't just lie, cheat, and steal to get everything you'd ever want. I mean,
right. Yeah.
But
yeah, why is it that there is meaning in being ethical?
I think there's no meaning in materialism.
Right.
I don't understand an argument for meaning. Maybe Sam Harris would like to come on and explain it to us.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
It'd be great. Right with Lee being atheist. Oh my God.
If he did, he would convince you, possibly of being an atheist, but also go, well, you were going to do that anyway. It wasn't up to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which kind of sounds like simulation hypothesis.
Yeah, it was
like
written in the code all along.
So opposed to materialism would be idealism. And that's the idea that the mind, everything arises from an idea, and that there is a mind that lives outside of our reality that generates our reality. And in the ancient world, I mean, you just say God. You say God created. I don't know if everyone would say God, but it sounds like God to me. I don't know if it sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, but an example that would be like the idea of a perfect sphere. So, and this is something that like Plato would use to argue it, but like a perfect sphere only exists as an ideal. Like you can't actually make a perfect sphere, you know, if you got down to like really measuring it or whatever. And I'm going to read through my notes, make sure I don't miss anything. Again, I'm trying to be thorough on this one. But okay, so yeah, the idea of idealism is like much like a dream. You know, like reality, like the way that within your dream, things seem real and everything seems like, you know, you exist in that, but nothing happening in that dream is actually happening in that dream. It's all, you know, controlled from outside of the dream somehow, you know. Does that make sense? Yeah,
and I was just thinking like the materialistic view of that is like, just electricity in your brain is generating that. Right. These dreams and stuff. And there's nothing about that. But I don't know. I mean, it's not uncommon for people to have dreams that they feel like tied in somehow with real life.
Or like I'm a really lucid dreamer. And I've had dreams where like I wake up and I'm not sure if I'm awake yet. Yeah. And I'm actually still in a dream. And it's like you gotta slap yourself and like, you know, I've done that before. And I know there's people that actually really do that, where they really like hover in this dream state as they're waking up. And I've had it where I've had 5-6 dreams, you know what I mean? Like, like a lot of dreams pack in. And I know it's only happened in like 5 minutes because I looked at my alarm when I half woke up a second ago or whatever. But but in the dream, it seems like, you know, oh God, I was like, just went on a journey.
Right.
Or I'm like, I constantly have a dream that I'm stuck at the airport. Like I'm rushing to get to the airport and I just can't get to my flight. Yeah. Have you ever had that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Or dreams like back when I used to drive pizzas.
You just can't get to the address.
You're on a run. You got 2 or 3 orders you need to get out. And you're right. Yeah. You're in a neighborhood and you keep turning right, knowing the next right turn is the way to get to that stop. And you turn right and it's another dead end.
I did that in college too.
You mean like in real life or in a dream?
Like in real life, I left a party. There's some stuff going on there. Yeah. And I swear it took me like 10 hours to get out of that like neighborhood.
That happened to me at the Denver airport once. I got lost in the nexus of the universe.
Because of chemicals or because of just, I
was confused.
Yeah, it happens.
I don't think it was a glitch in the simulation. That was a self-imposed glitch.
So back to science, back to like some sort of verification of this. I made a list. There's a lot. But Dr. Brian Whitworth, he did an analysis of simulation hypothesis comparing materialism to simulation and really taking a hard look at it. And I believe he's a theoretical physicist, but yeah, he went through all of the data and all of the, I mean, he just was saying, yes, it's highly, 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 highly more likely simulation hypothesis than just random materialism universe.
Yeah.
And I mean, you don't even have to go like, I don't think he gets much into like what exactly is going on. He's just saying the idea, the idea of materialism just doesn't, it's such a stretch. It doesn't make any sense because we've never experienced that in reality, where you say something that which is cannot come from that which is not, is the idea. And that's not me. That's, I think, Thomas Aquinas or somebody. But yeah, this idea that all of reality, I had a buddy who used to say that, like, people that don't believe in God, they actually believe in like one miracle. And it's like the biggest miracle ever. Because it's like, I don't believe in miracles, except that one where everything came
Just
from
started.
nothing, just magically. Like, that's the one I believe in. But all the other ones I don't believe in.
When you frame it like that, that's pretty funny. Yeah.
So
it requires a lot of faith to go, nothing ever just comes from nothing, except for everything one time.
Yeah.
And
that leads right into the first proof that we live in a simulation. And that's the Big Bang. So the Big Bang was actually discovered, I didn't look it up, I don't remember his name, but it's a Catholic priest, I think a Jesuit priest. Long time ago, he was also an astronomer. And many people think that's a science thing. Science actually is, the church. And he noticed, I think, through studying, the solar system or whatever, that this theory of a Big Bang, that the universe is expanding probably from a common point. And now that's kind of really accepted by science as the magical explanation of all of reality. Yeah. But ironically, that actually is very difficult to explain reality. If you're saying that everything came from nothing, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense with the way we understand reality. But if you're looking at it from a simulation hypothesis, it actually explains reality. It makes complete sense. Because if you're in a game, like this is a game or some sort of virtual construct, every time you rebooted the game, that would be a Big Bang.
Yeah, sure.
Everything came from a 0 point. Every time you turn on the simulation, that's what would happen. So the idea that we view our history and reality in that way makes sense because that's what you would expect. You wouldn't know anything outside of the simulation. It's just flip the switch, it's on. Flip the switch, it's off.
Did you hear anything as you were looking into this about that Black Mirror episode about the simulation?
I've heard other people suggest that or say something about that, but I've never watched it. What is the deal with it?
The episode's called Hang the DJ. If you start listening to podcasts on simulation and hypothesis, you're likely to hear this. Referred to. But I watched it over the last week, and I'm going to start watching more Black Mirror, by the way. Have you ever watched any of this?
I think I watched the first couple episodes, and I stopped for some reason. I don't know why. It was a good show.
I really liked it. Don't watch it with your kids.
I think it was because I switched, like, isn't it on Hulu or something?
It's on Netflix. Yeah.
That's it. I got rid of Netflix.
Okay, yeah.
But if I get that deal with Obama, I'm totally getting my Netflix back.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I could probably work it in the deal or say, you can use my song.
Yeah. I just want your Netflix password.
Lifetime Netflix subscription. No questions asked.
I think he'd go for that. Yeah.
I bet he could swing it too. He's Obama.
Oh, yeah. There's somebody he could call. Yeah.
He's an executive producer. No, he's a hands-on producer.
Hey, he's a legit producer. In that episode, one of the characters says to the other something like, do you remember before we met? And it's like the first time the other character has thought about it, but kind of like, oh, no, that's pretty weird. Yeah. And, this kind of idea of, well, what happened before everything? Like, well, it has to boot up somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I think the weirdest thing about materialism is if you really think about what it's saying, is it just boils down to like shit happens. Like that's the scientific explanation for all of reality is like it just happened.
Yeah.
And you go like, it doesn't really answer anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, yes, obviously shit happens, but doesn't answer why it happens, you know?
Yeah, I don't know what you could have as a starting point. I mean, at some point you have to go back to nothing, right? I mean, if you keep breaking down...
It could entirely be that we are so dumb that there are numbers guys out there that are listening to this going like, of course they don't understand.
Right, yeah.
It could be that we're so dumb that we don't understand that shit just happens. But...
Could be, yeah.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it sure would be nice. If that were the case, it would be nice to stumble upon a planet where some of that just happened somewhere else, where life just kind of got going.
Yeah, that'd be kind of the scientific...
then you could go, see,
maybe that's why
over there.
Elon's trying to get to Mars so much, so he can try to put a finger on it.
Of course, Elon is of the
he's on our camp.
Yeah.
He's totally in our camp.
Exactly, yeah.
The smartest, richest guy on the planet. He's
man, I'll tell you, I was
he's a simulation
re-listening
guy.
to his interview with Rogan from like 2018. And I just was a little bit like, I think I'm just going to agree with most of what, I mean, he's figured a lot of stuff out about life.
Yeah, I mean, after you've made $100 billion at some point, don't you just go like, he's probably right? I mean,
about most things. Default, if Elon says it, he's been on the right path about a lot of things.
I think that's funny. I mean, maybe I'm just too dumb. Maybe that's
Could
what
be.
it is.
Yeah, that was an idea I heard another guy smarter than us talking about was if we are in a simulation and we're just subjects inside of it. He made the analogy that the question was, could we understand the civilization or whoever's behind the simulation, whoever generated the simulation? Is it even possible for us to wake up in reality and
know
have a
the mind of God?
Yeah, that
kind of
sort of thing. And it's Nick Bostrum.
Yeah.
And
we're going to get into Nick.
Oh, good. Because he's, out of looking into all of this, he's my favorite brain that I came across.
Well, he's one of the key figures in kind of bringing this subject to the modern, like to a polite, like you could actually bring it up in scientific circles, and you could talk about this with other scientists, and not have Neil deGrasse Tyson,
kick you out of his house,
snicker in the corner and laugh at you.
Yeah.
I just hate Neil deGrasse Tyson. By the way,
I'm not going to say I hate him, but
I hate him. He is what stupid people think a smart person
what if he's
sounds
a silent
like.
partner in
God, we're screwed now. But I don't know if I'd want to work with him. He's such
okay. Yeah.
Have you heard that? Have you seen that interview? I think with Rogan, there's at some point, there's some, you can look up, Rogan's like asking him some question. I know I talk about Rogan all the time. I don't know why. I don't exactly watch Rogan all the time either. I watch way more other podcasts.
He puts a lot of content out.
That's what it is. You got a lot of shorts. But anyway, he's asking him some question about somebody, and Tyson is just such a prick about it. I don't know. He's just such a... He's what stupid people think a smart person sounds like. I really don't.
That's a good line, yeah.
I don't think he's that smart.
So conversely, Bostrom, I think, is like really good at giving you these giant ideas and not talking like you think a smart person should talk.
Yeah.
I think he presents them in a very accessible way. One of those ways being this analogy of could we understand the mind of God? And one of the examples he gave was like, well, in so much as a dog knows what you're up to. I mean, the dog gets hungry. The dog understands when you're eating food, it wants some of your food. So in some ways, the dog knows what it is to be human. The dog does not understand how your 30-year mortgage works.
And it's it's nothing against the dog.
No, it's not a slight on the
it's just
dog.
reality.
Yeah.
And it's like there are limitations to what a human can understand. And until, even like if you think about the idea of creation, like we say that like, oh, a creative person or someone's being creative. Yeah. But in reality, you're not creating anything. Like they say the person who invented electricity. It's like, electricity already, you discovered electricity. Yeah. Or even like if you take inventions, like somebody invented the light bulb. It's like, well, no, you took things within this reality
things together.
that the creator made,
Yeah.
and you put it into a creative package that is kind of novel and fun or useful, but did you actually create it? It's like,
would you say the same thing about a painting or a song?
Yeah, no, I'd say the same thing.
Yeah, so you're saying you just grab.
So I write a song. It's a melody and it's words and a rhythm. And did I invent any of that? No.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been listening to music since I was.
right.
Yeah, it's like Well, I don't even know if it's happening in here.
Yeah.
Like that's another theory too, but I think maybe it comes from somewhere else, and it's like this just like receives it and it's like coming in. But the idea that like even now as songwriters, nothing new is under the sun. Like every country song is either a Tom Petty or a John Cougar song rewritten. I say every country song. Yeah. There's no new country song out there. That's nothing against country artists. I'm just saying if you dissect these songs, it's like somebody already did that. So then at what point, and then you go to that same guy and you go like, well, yeah, but that was blues back in the day and that was this back in the day. Yeah. You know, are we creating anything or are we just kind of discovering things?
Yeah, repurposing a couple of things and putting it in front of new eyeballs. Man, I like that downloading it idea. Because speaking of Tom Petty, that's how he would talk about writing songs.
Did he?
He's like, yeah, it feels like they just kind of come. He's like, the good ones, they just kind of come down to you. So,
keep showing off the mug.
Looks good. Did you invent this mug? You created it?
This is a perfect example of not creating something. So, this is from Adobe stock.
Nice.
Okay, so some other artist made that.
Yep.
This is a font search on ChatGPT for a 1950s font.
That was I was curious what made you land on that one.
I forget what the font is called. So somebody else made that font. I did not. Yeah. And this is a mug made in China.
Yeah.
So, but that's my spin on it.
Yeah.
You know, so I made this mug.
It's an original combination of those elements. Yeah.
All right, let's move on with the simulation. Let's just prove it to everybody.
No problem.
Okay. This is a good one. James Gates. Are you familiar with him?
Nope.
Dr. James Gates.
So, Dr. Yeah.
The question is there evidence of programming in nature? And there's a clip of our favorite physicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Dr. James Gates talking about this on YouTube that you can look up. But Gates was studying, I think what's called supersymmetry. And he's studying like computer code that represents or describes physical reality. And he discovered a while back that the code that reality can be described with computer code. And not just like any code, like a very specific code that we use in computer programming. Ones and zeros. That's it. And he was shocked. Like in today, I think he's still like, I don't get it. Like he was doing it, trying to discover like some novel, approach to understanding reality. And it was like, well, it's this computer program written back in the 1920s by, I even wrote down his name, Claude Shannon. So Claude Shannon wrote the computer code that describes physical reality.
What did you do today?
What did you do? Yeah. I wrote the greatest song, alien abduction song ever written. No, but that's, man, you listen to him talk about it with Tyson and it's like, he's not reading into it much, but he's just like, yeah, no, reality. It's pretty strange that it lines up exactly with the computer code that we're using.
Yeah.
Did you see that clip? I mean,
no, I don't think so. But I'm just agreeing that it is strange. Like, that's an odd coincidence that you could find computer code that lines up with reality.
Yeah. It's a shame that we're so dumb we can't really go into much detail about that.
Yeah, I can't even tell you what the odds.
Yeah, I know. I saw it on YouTube and it seemed really suspicious. I mean, I can't really verify any details about what he was talking about. But
yeah, we're doing well if we write the names down of people that said the stuff that
we're doing well if we hit record.
That's true, yeah. Or remember what we're supposed to talk about. We're lucky we're not just talking about the Mandela effect again.
Yeah, which was a Mandela effect.
No kidding.
And it's, I mean, that didn't help me not believe in the simulation
we
hypothesis.
recorded one episode on the Mandela effect, had technical issues, so we recorded a second, released that one, and then a week later came back to record a podcast episode
about the Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah, we ran into technical issues with that. So then we came back and said, well, let's re-record that episode. Forgetting that we had already released the Mandela effect, we did a third Mandela effect until my wife mentioned to me that she'd already listened to the one we'd released, at which point we were like, oh, okay. So
what was your reaction when she said that? Did you really feel like, oh my God, it's a Mandela effect?
I just...
Because then you called me like, did we do a podcast? And I go, yes, I swear we did a podcast about that. And not all the while, no, you're just old and dumb.
Yeah,
and you
yeah. So, and that's that Mandela effect. Sometimes, like we talked at the beginning, at the outset of this podcast, how a lot of times will just chalk it up to like, well, people just don't remember details very often in a lot of conspiracy theories, or people just aren't paying as much attention as we hope that they would, or things can be explained with just what's the word I'm looking for? Just shoddy work, right? Not keeping good notes in your police work, that sort of thing. And in that case, I'm like, I don't think that was the Mandela effect. I think it's just
well, if you started to interview people and like half of the population remembered it, then you'd think, okay,
then yeah, there might be something to it.
I think in this case, we're just idiots.
Yeah.
So
I don't mean to tear us back into the Mandela effect episode again. I just want to give some context. I'm sorry. Go to, you were talking about James Gates.
No, that's all I really had to say about it. I'm too stupid to explain his formulas or whatever.
Speaking of things that one or both of us are too stupid to really explain, you sent me a couple of those YouTube links on these two slits experiment.
Yeah, did you watch them? That
sounds like dirtier than what it is.
It's not dirty.
Yeah, it's
if you're having you need to go to confession if you're thinking these things. It's not me.
So I watched what you sent me, and I understood in it so much as these protons shouldn't behave the way they did. And I'll go a little further by saying in these experiments, the way that they explained the way that protons were behaving when they were shooting protons back and forth were kind of like when we use the analogy of a video game a lot of times, kind of like when you put a figure or an icon in the corner of a television screen, and then you put another figure, an icon, an image in the middle of the screen. Those two images are, maybe they look far away.
They're perceived to be
far away, but in reality, they're no further away from the server.
Yeah.
They're both equidistant to the server that's serving up these images on the screen. So that is what I took from that video, which I thought was a pretty interesting concept. So if you've got more to like kind of lay out for...
Well, let's rehash double slit experiment just to like catch people up. But the idea is non-locality.
Yes, that's
also known as quantum entanglement. And it goes back to Einstein, and I'm forgetting the other physicist's name.
That other guy's probably tired
Niels
of that.
Bohr,
Yeah.
I think, something like that. It's not important. I mean, I know he Nobel Peace Prize and everything, but it's not important.
He's like the Scottie Pippen.
Yeah. What's important is right here, right now. So the idea in the experiment is studying the way that particles behave versus waves. And they have an experiment with a slit, and they're shining a light through it. So like photons are going through that, and they pass through this slit, and on the backside there's a sensor that creates like a wave pattern it's one slit, it would just create like one line, but when you introduce two slits, it's going to create some disturbance, and it'll be like a wave pattern of light on the back of the sensor. And they did the same thing with particles, and it would create with one slit a cluster pattern of just one, like you would expect. And then when they did two slits, strangely, it would create a wave pattern. So they were thinking like, well, how are they behaving like waves? Like they're particles, they're not waves. So it sent scientists down this long road of like developing different experiments where they could send, individual particles through these slits to like really try to find out like what's going on. Are they bumping into each other? And so when they did that, it would always create like this wave pattern. And so eventually a physicist developed a way to like have a sensor there to detect exactly when particles would go through these different slits and know what they were going to do. And I'll be damned, as soon as they started watching what the particles did, they started acting like in cluster patterns. They started acting like particles instead of like waves. And the scientists were just dumbfounded. This is 100 years ago in physics. And they've developed like tons of different experiments of trying to figure out, and when they turned off the sensor, but they left it there, it would go back to acting like a wave. Mm-hmm. So it's like the particles would know whether or not they were being observed. And that sounds like spooky action at a distance in, our materialistic worldview. But if you think about it in like a simulation worldview, it makes complete sense, because it's this idea that things are not observed. They don't exist until they're observed.
Right.
And that's exactly the way like a Sims computer simulation would work.
Yeah, hopefully I'm kind of going in the same direction, but yeah, it's this idea that like right now my car's not parked in front of your house because I'm not out there to go to the car to observe.
Yeah, is it there?
Like, it saves bandwidth for the server.
Yes.
For us
that's
to just
the idea.
to just be observing this room.
And that's the simulation that would be an argument for it, that it's that the way that particles are actually functioning in reality is exactly how you would program a simulation to work to save computational power, so that you don't get like overloaded and the whole system goes down.
Yeah, the tree actually would not be heard falling in the forest because it's efficient for the computer.
It's only going to produce the tree when it's relevant for someone to see the tree. When no one's there, it probably doesn't exist.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that makes your brain hurt.
I don't know what else I had on that, except that to me is one of the biggest, non-locality in general. Like the idea, that's not exactly the same as the double slit experiment. So that's, I forget, there's a name for that, but it's slightly different. But the non-locality is talking about like quantum entanglement and superposition and quantum mechanics on a different way. But that idea too, again, has been a big problem for physics to say how. Einstein couldn't rationalize it. His entire career, he worked to develop a unified theory of everything that would try to rationalize or prove quantum mechanics wrong. But I think in 1982, a physicist named Bell developed some sort of experiment that you can look up, but it's a highly complex experiment that did prove, no, actually non-locality is a fundamental property of natural reality of nature. And so it really like shut down Einstein and said, yes, this is true. Particles can be quantumly entangled. They can be anywhere in the universe. And what happens to one is going to happen to the other. And it's back to that idea of like, well, that doesn't make any sense in a material world view. But in a simulation, it's just like, well, everything's the same distance from the server. Where's the server? It's right here. Okay, well, anything happening on the display, our display of a 3D reality, it might seem like it's halfway across the universe, but it's really not. The server's right here. Yeah,
another analogy that was given in one of those videos you sent was like the idea of a, what are those called? Where you turn the card and it's got like kind of a 3D effect. I keep wanting to say hieroglyph. That's not it at all.
Like a card with a 3D hologram?
A baseball card. Hologram.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to think of. Hologram, where it's a two-dimensional XY object, but the way that they're bending light gives it a three-dimensional
That makes me think of, do you remember like when we were in like first, second, third grade? Kids today don't even know, but back in the day, they had these books that were like they had like images that were like a bunch of small images, and you were supposed to put it right next to your eyes and slowly move it away, and then a holographic image would appear. And I did that once to where like I went cross-eyed for a minute, and it was like,
when it jumps out at you, and for for you same kids that don't know what we're talking about, they used to have these things called shopping malls with stores full of these paintings.
Yes, you would buy them. You would, and then you go over to your friend's house and you like look at it and you like move your head in and out.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to those? I haven't seen one of those in 20 years.
Did you ever act like you could see the thing just so you didn't feel silly?
At first, because I think the first time I saw one, everyone was saying, and then somebody told me,
it's a battleship.
They were like, kind of cross your eyes and it'll work. And it did. But then my eyes kind of stayed crossed and it wasn't good. But
you're talking about locality, and we're talking about not being smart. So I know that this is this is what I typed. Yeah, locality is not found in the universe, meaning protons arrive at given points at the same time, regardless of the distance that it has to travel. The idea being that all matter is equidistant from the server. So I'm not smart enough to have generated that thought. That's something I jotted down that I must have taken from. It
sounded pretty smart.
Well, what I'm saying,
it wasn't like really smart, but it was like
pretty good. I feel pretty good that I stole that from something, and I'm just relaying it, going, this is not just my interpretation of the idea, but I'm just agreeing with what you were saying. Like, yeah, what these smart people are finding is that locality is not a thing. That
God's weird if you think about it.
Yeah. The other weird thing that I don't know if we can articulate this very well, repeating what these smart people say, but the idea that some of this stuff goes back in time to change. Do you remember?
Well, yeah, the double slit experiment. It would.
Yeah.
Like it would go back. However they set up the experiment, like when they were turning on and off the sensor, it would behave. It would like go back in time and rewrite like what had happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is.
I can't even. That's hilarious. I can barely stop water from leaking from a faucet, and these guys are able to. They're able to push protons through a tube somehow.
But they have all our tax dollars, so we played a role too.
Well, that's. You're welcome.
You're
Science.
welcome.
Yeah.
Let's talk before we get into, like, I kind of want to get into your take on it and my take on it, but before we do that, we got to talk about Nick Bostrum, though.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain who he was and kind of what his take on simulation hypothesis is?
Yeah. I think highly of him, so he's a Swedish philosopher, but he's also
taught at MIT, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I wanted to kind of just make sure. Background in theoretical physics, computational neuroscience, logic, and artificial intelligence. He has a book about superintelligence. I tried listening to it, and I went back to it today, and I found that I had deleted it off my phone because about a week ago, I remember now, like, I started trying to listen to it, and I thought, this is for future Dave. I can't understand this right now. So his book on superintelligence is good, but you got to be smarter than me to understand it. His explanation of...
That's funny they didn't call it average intelligence.
I'm kind of like the dog. I understand what it means to be hungry.
You should tweet him and say, could you write an average intelligence book that I could try to understand?
Yeah, is there super intelligence for dummies?
Oh, gosh.
What I thought was helpful from Nick Bostrum was his options for the simulation hypothesis and how likely it is based off of our trajectory to superintelligence. And a really crude example or explanation of what superintelligence is us creating technology that can not only exist outside of us, but advance on its own. So we're kind of getting there. Artificial intelligence, you know what I mean?
It appears as if we're getting there.
Yeah.
Jury's out as far as actually.
Well, I guess what I mean is all signs point that we're on the trajectory towards it. Now, You're right. Lex Friedman made the point, like, he said he was fooling around with those Roombas, those little vacuum cleaners that go around your house. And he said, you can manipulate machines into acting seemingly human. It's easier than you think. And we kind of, since we're such emotional creatures, that we actually can be fooled easier than we'd like to think. So Friedman's talking about, he programmed a whole bunch of these little Roomba vacuums to make like sounds like they're in pain. Just kind of to see what the psychological effect was on it.
I wish I was smart enough to like conduct experiments like that.
Yeah. And the way he said it was so dismissive, kind of like,
I just did it in the
sort
afternoon.
of, yeah. It would almost be like if I told you I set my clock 2 hours ahead to trick my body into waking up a little earlier all the time.
I reprogrammed my Roomba to make noises like I was being tortured.
And he didn't go into detail on why or how he had so many Roombas, but it sounded like he had a ridiculous amount of them in his house, and they were all making this like whining noise, like they were in pain. But that's neither here nor there. He was talking to Nick Bostrum. Bostrom saying we are on the trajectory to superintelligence as a civilization. And if a civilization is on this trajectory, there are 3 outcomes that they would end up reaching. One is that a civilization would destroy itself, whether that's nuclear warfare.
Before we invent simulations indistinguishable from reality.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
So we're on this trajectory to develop simulations where, whether you want to call it a headset or a Neuralink or whatever it is, it's like Total Recall. You sit down, they plug you in, you don't know you're in a simulation.
Right.
So we're on that path to Total Recall, and for whatever reason, asteroid hits the Yucatan. It's all she wrote.
Yeah, asteroid or
just dead. We get sent back to the Stone Age or something where it's like no electricity.
We war ourselves to death and we just don't make it in time. To
nuclear war. Yeah, I mean, something happens that stops that development.
Yeah, and he discusses it more like, I mean, the way he refers to it is more like of our own making. We destroy ourselves, So, I mean, there is the possibility of an asteroid or some kind of...
They did just have that meteor hit Texas that was like 8 tons of TNT.
Oh,
did you hear about that?
No.
It's outside of Dallas.
Okay. No,
it's caught on Ring doorbell.
No kidding.
Yeah, like you don't see it hit, but you can hear it. Like, boom.
I would hope so.
It's like, man, I would love to see that hit, though.
I don't know if I would or not. Yeah.
I mean, I want to see it. I want it to hit me, but I want to see it get hit.
Yeah,
I want to see it hit Texas.
I'd like to see it from here. Yeah, I want to see it hit Texas.
Texas for
sure. So that's option number 1. A civilization destroys itself before it reaches super intelligence and can develop a simulation that's believable enough to where you can't
Why does he
it.
call that super intelligence? What he's really saying is we develop simulations indistinguishable from reality, but that's it. Like he's saying, like that's the point of like super intelligence, because then it's like, well, what do you do 1,000 years from then? What do you do like 1,000,000 years from then? At what point do you say, oh, we're super intelligence? You know what I mean?
He had a
super duper intelligence, duper intelligence.
You mean like what's after super intelligence?
Yes, exactly. It's kind of a weird arbitrary point to say, well, when we can make Total Recall,
we've
reached
the finish
it.
line.
We're super intelligence. Because it doesn't seem like it takes much to fool humans. Would be my thought.
Not humans like us. It doesn't.
Not you and me, for sure. We thought we podcasted this before. We probably already podcasted this. We're going to finish and go, oh, shit.
I have to call my wife.
You're going to have to start double checking with her before we publish
Babe, is it okay
anything?
if we release the...
Is it okay? Please?
No, you've already talked about Kennedy. Yeah.
Oh, damn it.
Number 2. This is a funny option. For whatever reason, the advanced civilization loses interest, which I think is hilarious. But I mean,
is it loses interest, or they also decide not to do it for some sort of ethical reason?
The couple of interviews I listened to, he says it like lost interest. Sort of like I recently acquired a bow for hunting. It's in my garage. I haven't got around to using it yet.
Yeah, you just 30 years go by and you just never touch it.
And one of these days, somebody goes, "Oh, are you a bow hunter?" And I'll go,
"You can have it."
Didn't get around to it. Yeah. So much in that same way, a civilization could go, "Gosh, I was really getting somewhere with that simulation."
I'd heard him say that same thing, both those things. So like what you're saying, but also maybe we watched Total Recall again and we realized how unethical it would be to do that to someone's mind, even if they were like, "Put me in paradise." You go, you don't want to go in paradise because you're never going to come out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So it was, but the idea is that we intentionally decide we're going to stop developing this technology.
We put our simulation
because humans
parts.
always do that, right?
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
known
Yeah.
for like having a new technology and then having the wherewithal to say,
Of course, yeah.
let's pump the brakes, guys.
Yeah.
Let's not go too crazy here.
If anything, we'd go all America on it, and we'd create it, and then we'd tell other countries they can't
Of
use
his
it.
3 things, that's the most absurd one to
Well,
me, is
but I
because
think that-
humans have never done that
Yeah.
ever in history.
No. But I think that's part of the case he's making is, okay, you just don't get to simulation because something interrupts you.
Something outside of you.
Yeah, your house
Yeah.
catches on fire. You can't cook your dinner. Second, you go to cook dinner and you lose interest for some reason. That's not likely. You're going to stay hungry. Third, we're in the simulation.
You're in the simulation.
And what I liked is he referred to, he goes, well, the odds are,
1 in 3.
out of the 3, that is the most likely. And it is, the likeliness, if there is a simulation, it's very likely that there are many, many versions of this simulation.
Yeah, yeah.
So then he calls it the bland principle of indifference. He says, according to the bland principle of indifference, the likelihood that we are the one base reality out of thousands or millions of simulations being run, it's just not very likely.
Not very likely.
The likelihood
That influenced my personal hypothesis
Okay,
about
cool.
what's going on.
Yeah, well,
Because it comes down to like the likelihood. And you just think like, really? That doesn't seem likely.
yeah, I agree. So that's his take on it. 3 options.
Which I really think is 2 options, because I did 2 and I did 3. That's how dumb I am. I was like 3,
I really think it's
2.
it's either option 1 or option B.
Option 1 or B. So option A is
We destroy ourselves. Get destroyed.
the one of humans holding back somehow from developing
When
this.
have we ever? I've been listening.
I mean, if you spend 5 minutes on OpenAI right now, tell me they're going to hold back. I mean, the company's valued at $29 billion already, and they haven't really done anything. So
yeah,
we have a hunger and a thirst to develop technology that the only way it would stop, in my opinion, is if someone like an Elon Musk became a complete tyrant and took over the entire world and just said, no, you're not doing this because I say no. All the other scientists, they want to do it. They're not going to stop.
right.
And I'm not advocating for that. I don't think anyone should be king of the world. But
No, but
I'm just saying that's all. That's the only thing I could see that would stop it is some sort of top down, like a parent saying,
yes,
no,
right.
you don't get to do this right now.
That's exactly what it would be. It would be.
Maybe it's the aliens. They come down and they say, no.
That's enough. Yeah.
That's enough, kids.
Which, I mean, maybe that's an option, or maybe that's a possibility for option 1. We destroy ourselves or are destroyed. Maybe it's the aliens
Maybe
coming
just hit
down.
that re-switch button.
Yeah. Or
reset.
whoever's monitoring the simulation. Oh, see, but now that puts us back in, we're pro-simulation theory. If we are in base reality and there are aliens, then you're right. It's possible the aliens.
It's so
have been,
weird as you say that. Even just think about if we're in base reality, and if there are aliens, God, the stakes just went way up.
Well,
man, what exactly is going on?
I said it pretty matter of fact, and I was about to draw the comparison to, just like if you were watching a hill of ants, and the ants started to get too worked up, and they started to come towards your house, you might put your foot down and crush the anthill. So. Perhaps the aliens are watching us down here and our wars with each other.
It's more tolerate. Like if you're watching the ants and they started to domesticate the grasshoppers to do the work for them, and then you went hey, now,
the direction this is going.
I don't know
Yeah.
where this is going. Yeah. And they start milking the grasshoppers. That's when you know. That's when you know something.
Ants riding on little carts behind the grasshoppers, and then they start to genetically modify the grasshoppers so that they don't bounce so much and the ride's
the day
a little smoother.
you see a toad on your front step with a couple ants on its back, telling it what to do.
And then the ant hops off. Shit! Tells the toad to stay while it goes in the house to get a couple things. Oh my goodness!
Oh, I'm getting all these tags.
That's ridiculous. So you're right.
That's so stupid.
Humans are not known to be responsible enough to moderate themselves in regards to this type of technology.
We can't even moderate ourselves in regards to our own bedrooms
we can't
and
stop
living
eating
rooms.
sugar.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. Just turn off the TV and go to sleep.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you. Yeah. I've been digging into more and more just history, and I am 100% in agreement with you that we do not have a penchant for like self-control when it comes to like specifically technological power. Whoever's holding the button,
there's no incentive to that. Did I think I told you about? I think it was Donald Hoffman. It was the biologist, or I think he studied biology. He was on Lex Friedman's podcast.
Is he the one? Sorry, go ahead.
But he did the study on, like, they're running these simulations or these computer models on evolution, and he basically had two models, one for fitness payoffs and one for truth seeking.
Oh, yeah.
And he was shocked back in the 80s when he got the results, because humans are wired 100% for fitness payoffs.
Right. Yeah.
We have nothing in us whatsoever to go after truth.
Yeah.
It's just, everything is fitness payoffs. And you think about that drive to pursue technology, that's all that is fitness payoffs. And It's not even surprising. It's like, well, that's evolution.
Yeah.
Well, how do you fight that if you're going to make it to the end of the race, Sorry, COVID cough. So Bostrum has, it's different than the other things we're talking about, but as far as kind of like Elon Musk kind of take on things, I feel like that is the strongest. Like, it's just kind of a big picture philosophical kind of look at it, and just going like, what makes sense, and I think it leaves us down to 50-50. And
right. Yeah. No, I think you're right that
if you're down to 50-50, my theory will push you right over the edge.
okay.
So, and I've told you about this before, but my theory is, I call it the cosmic lottery hypothesis.
Oh, yeah.
So we've talked about this before, but
I'm a fan
it's my
of this.
my own original theory, and I think of it as like, okay, so here is, think of like a chart here, and this is quality of life, and this is time. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is you right up here, and this is quality of life, all the way up to here, and here's time. And then like, here's your ancestors. So like, go back to your dad, and it's like down here. Then you go back to your granddad, and it's down here. And then your great granddad, it's down here. And your great dad is like down here. And then for like 15 million years, this is
been
like
baseline
nothing.
almost,
it's like just
barely better than tigers.
You're happy to die of dysentery at 30. Like that's a good death. That's that's better than getting eaten by a wolf or something,
Yeah.
So that is actually what you're looking at. If I was going to if I was going to study your life and say like, this is Dave. Okay, Dave here. You're sitting here, and it's like millions and millions of years back there. Is it not strange that you're right here?
Right.
Like, you're not here. You're not here. You're in the cosmic lottery seat.
Yeah, and this, like, Bostrom would agree with you, I think.
Yeah.
Just given some of the
oddity
of
of
the way he frames the odds of things and the logistics,
So I thought about it this way. So if you said, Dave, do you want to trade places with anybody else back here? If you're being like, oh, okay, I want to go on an adventure, you might switch one or two places like right up here.
Yeah.
But would you really go back here to like dead at 30,
No.
dead at 20, whatever? The truth is, if you were being smart, you would never trade places with anybody else in your timeline, ever. But if you asked anybody in your timeline, do you want to trade places with Dave? Yes, they would trade places with you like that. They'd say, yeah, I'd like to not die some horrific death, suffering all of my life, just trying to survive from the cats that are eating us, or whatever it might be. So that to me was like, that right there is like, nobody is that lucky. That's, you know what I mean? So when you think about like that, like, are you in a simulation? Well, if I'm not in a simulation, I would say then I just happen to be the luckiest guy in the universe.
Yeah.
Like, that's just objectively what's going on. And it's like, well, I guess I am. I'm the luckiest guy in the universe. I guess just that lucky. But doesn't seem very likely.
No, the bland principle of indifference says that you are most likely not the luckiest guy in the universe.
You don't even have to say simulations going on. I guess my point is something's going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you go, wow, I just happen to have antibiotics. I just happen to live in a very nice house in a nice neighborhood where it's safe and clean and everything's, virtually perfect. I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think anyone deserves that. Like, why would you just deserve to be the luckiest person in the universe?
No, I mean, I've not done a great many wrong things, but I certainly have not done so many exemplary things that I deserve the life that I've got. Right.
I think that goes for any of us, which just is, and I get it. Like, the people that have pushed back on my theory say, well, yeah, but there are people that are in great, great suffering in the world. Like, they're not living in the cosmic lottery seat. And I say, yeah, but they're just part of the simulation.
You are. Man.
Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know that there are people that are suffering, but I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
I'm just explaining where I'm at, where it's like, I just know that where I'm at is better than anyone else has ever had it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I am just the luckiest guy in the universe. I don't know.
Maybe you are. Which, I mean, like, you made the crack to me and a couple of the other guys in the band. Like, how do I know you guys aren't just droids put here to, as part of my simulation?
I like you, Dave. You seem like a really great guy.
Thanks.
If you turn out to be an NPC,
well,
I'll just say, like, he was the best NPC I could have asked for.
To my knowledge, I'm not, but I was watching.
But that's what you would say. That's exactly what you would say.
I was watching my son play Lego City this week, and one of the characters, I don't remember what the setting is in the game, but, this character in the game, he's on a playground. And those wheels, you kind of get the centripetal force going.
Yeah, I hate those.
Well, this guy seemed to like it fine. The character in the Lego game just happened to get lost, and he's on this thing, and he's stuck on it. He's kind of like, whoa. And then, like, my son's character is actually going around getting bad guys, doing whatever he's supposed to be doing. But you can still, in a corner of the screen, watch this one character just be lost in the playground. And I was like, that poor fella doesn't know he's lost in the playground. And then I thought, that poor fella doesn't know he's a character in a game.
Did you think that could be Dante?
Well, actually, at the time when you said, I hope you guys aren't droids, I was kind of like, that's ridiculous. And then I thought, of course, if I am a droid, what
would you know?
How do I know? Yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't know. Well, so maybe that's why this sounds stupid to me, because it's supposed to sound stupid.
Yeah, I've just been programmed to be like, I wouldn't be a very effective droid if I didn't think I was real.
Yeah.
Right?
It should sound like nonsense.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way
they programmed you. I should have no doubt that I am not a droid. Right?
Makes sense. Yeah. I don't know anyway. It's I get it. Like, my hypothesis is not it's no Nick Bostrum. But I feel it's pretty solid.
It is. I mean, of course, now that I get to thinking about it, you're the only friend I've got that kind of thinks like you. So, like, maybe you're a droid in mine.
I want to say thank you, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Maybe you're a droid in my simulation to kind of keep me chugging away.
Damn it, he's on to us. Damn it, guys. He's on to us.
That Black Mirror episode, there are a couple times where, like, I won't spoil the episode, but yeah, there are these little tips of, like, nods of characters in the simulation.
That are in on it, yeah.
And yeah, if you know what's going on, all of a sudden it's one of those, like, oh, he's on to us, sort of.
So if we are in a simulation, it kind of seems like that's like a narrative, like that's like a story. What would be the ultimate climax of that story? Like, when does the story end? Like, if you think about your life, and you're like, what would be like that third act that's like really kind of like, oh, all bets are off.
So and kind of like a Matrix storyline.
Yeah. What would it be?
Character awakens. Then there's what does the character do with this information, right?
More like all bets are off. Like what's the thing that's going to happen right before the end, where you're like, oh my gosh, he's never going to make it, and then you realize, oh, he has the secret key to solve all of it. You know what I mean? Like you obviously haven't gotten there.
No,
because
you could tell by the
look in my eyes,
I don't have the key to
No, not the key, but the boot hasn't dropped yet. Like
right.
the thing that happens that you're like, oh man, third act. What are we gonna do?
Okay. Yeah.
In my life, I've thought about that. I don't know, if you thought about that. I'm like looking for things like, if this happens, if Jesus comes down in a UFO, then
that's
it.
a third act moment.
That's the third act.
Okay.
What would be the third act? What would be the thing? Because if it's a simulation, it has to be a game or a story. Like it has to be a story. So someone's watching this to their entertainment or whatever, and there has to be something interesting that happens.
Yeah. So I wasn't thinking of it. I was kind of chewing on this idea, but not in terms so specific to
like
me.
personally, yeah.
Again, lately I've been thinking of us as a ant colony a lot, and I've been listening to this book on Vietnam, and so just today I was chewing on this idea of like, okay, if we are a simulation and somebody's watching this, maybe they're watching some of these. I mean, like Vietnam was a real mess. I don't know if you heard.
I heard.
Maybe
from direct family members. Yes, I heard it was not good.
I won't bore you with the details.
I won't bore you with you didn't want to be there.
Yeah, it was not great. And maybe what I thought of it was more like someone monitoring a simulation would look at a situation like that and go, okay, there are some missteps that our civilization could benefit from not falling prey to. And the same could be said for a lot of our global politicking since then. And so I kind of was thinking of it in terms of like, well, perhaps the purpose of what we've got going on here is whoever's watching this simulation is benefiting from watching our missteps. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I don't know if I agree with it. I mean, I think if you think about it like a Total Recall kind of thing, it's more about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're playing a game. You plugged into this. You're trying to be why would you play this game? Maybe out of boredom. But if it's an ultimate game like this, you play it more out of like to try to better yourself, you know? Like you're trying to level up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so seems like if it was a simulation, the simulation is not so much the point as you are the point.
Yeah.
Like you're a character in this, and how you act. It's back to the beginning of this podcast.
Rules, yeah.
Like it likes it when you play by its rules. It's got a certain set of rules. You're supposed to be the hero of this simulation. And that could mean a million different things. Like maybe it means you save somebody in some heroic way, or maybe it means you learn how to like clean your room and
I'm glad you
pay your
brought
taxes.
that up. Yeah, I actually have this.
Just be a little better than you used to be, or something.
I won't read what I've got in my notes, but it is like thinking on this over the last week and a half did get me really thinking on like, what's the point of this game, right?
You probably paid a lot to be in here.
Yeah. Or maybe the technology.
It's like 20, 30, 40 is like, this is like psychotherapy. You're just like, you had like some sort of insurance policy that paid for you to go to like, you weren't cutting it at work, and they're like, hey, go to Total Recall, and you need to go back in, and you need to like try to be a little more organized. So when you come back out, you
get this together. Oh my goodness. Yeah, to me, what I came away with is the point of this game. Leveling up to me looks like you said, learn how to clean your room, that sort of thing. Putting myself in a position physically, mentally, financially, to where I am the most help to the people around me. Like that is the best way to catapult us, the collective us, forward. I'm not an Elon Musk in terms of brain capacity or influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am only
Conspiracy
Right,
Dad
not yet.
podcast. Give it a few years.
But perhaps I will be in that position if I continue following the simulation rules. But my point is, the more I can do to, optimize myself and do well for myself and be in a position, kind of like, I've been thinking about, I've got friends that have a lot more free time than I do. They're in a position
Guy's
that
named Dante.
you are who I'm thinking of specifically, but yeah.
The guy that researches all kinds of conspiracies on the internet all day.
You got 5 kids. You don't have that much free time. I'm talking about, just anybody that can, who, you've got somebody you can call if your battery's dead. They can come give you a jump.
Yeah.
Typically, those guys have more latitude over their day to day, right? And that's a result of the life they've set up for themselves. So to the end that I can put myself in a situation to loan you some money to buy a new battery, or I can call you an Uber, or I can take the time myself to come to the parking lot and help you out. Like, to me, that's starting to become the objective.
That makes you a winner.
Yes. Yeah.
A winner in reality.
Yes. That's
You're
my
in
point.
a game called reality, and
So,
it's like, you're trying to be a winner.
I mean, I don't necessarily need to be the president to put the most good positive effect out into the world. This is not, I'm not the first person to think of this.
Now that you're saying that, maybe that when I said what's the thing that would happen that you're like, oh, this is the climax of the story.
Yeah.
It would be something unexpected.
Yeah.
It would be something like money doesn't really matter. It's all a virtual construct.
Mm-hmm.
Power doesn't really matter. It's a virtual construct. All this is like a virtual construct. So the thing it'd be like some little thing that you thought that you almost dismissed.
Yeah.
But then in the process of living, you realized that was the most important thing, and you did it.
Yeah.
And it was like the perfect thing for the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of a good example of that.
I just think of things
It's like that pilot that landed in off of New York in Long Island.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing where you're like, nothing, just the right guy for the job right then. You know what I mean? And that's the game. Game over. Start over.
Yeah. Oh man, you got to watch that Black Mirror episode.
Man, but it's Lent.
Oh.
And my Lent thing this is tough. So I gave
No Black Mirror.
Catholics give up stuff for Lent, if you don't know that. But I gave up screen time after dinner.
Oh, that's good.
Because that's my thing is I always fall asleep watching movies that I like and stuff. But I did it last night for the first time, and it was tough. Like I put my phone on the charger and was just like,
that's that.
I'm just not touching it.
Yeah.
No TV. I'm going to go play with the kids and go to bed.
It's supposed to
read
be
a book. I read a book.
It's supposed to be a sacrifice of some kind of significance.
Yeah.
Right. You don't give up something that you don't necessarily do anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no sacrament to that.
I think it's going to be a good one though. It's going to be good for me to just turn it off. Just, not till you watch the end of this episode, then turn it off. All right. We're like in an hour and a half. That was a good podcast. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Simulation Hypothesis. Check out Nick Bostrum. Check out, we'll link in the show notes to a Simulation Hypothesis YouTube video that's fantastic. So let us know what you think. Thanks, guys.